Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of the military training compound, her small frame casting an even smaller shadow in the morning sun. At 5 feet 4 inches and barely 120 pounds, she looked like she belonged in a college dormitory rather than among the towering soldiers surrounding her. The other recruits towered over her, their muscles bulging beneath their uniforms as they prepared for another day of grueling training. "Look what the wind blew in," laughed Marcus Thompson, a former college football player whose biceps were bigger than Sarah's thighs. "Did someone's little sister get lost on her way to cheerleading practice?" The group erupted in laughter. Sarah had heard it all before during her 3 weeks at Fort Braxton. The jokes never stopped, neither did her determination. "Maybe she thinks this is summer camp," added Jessica Rodriguez, another recruit who had been giving Sarah trouble since day one. "Wait until she sees what real training looks like." Sarah kept her eyes forward, focusing on the obstacle course ahead. She had learned early in life that actions spoke louder than words. Growing up in rural Montana, she had spent countless hours hunting with her grandfather, learning patience and precision that most people never developed. While other kids played video games, she was tracking deer through dense forests and hitting targets at distances that would make seasoned hunters jealous. Drill Sergeant Williams blew his whistle, calling the group to attention. "Today we start marksmanship training," he announced, his voice carrying across the field. "Some of you think you know how to shoot because you played paintball or went hunting once with Daddy. You don't know anything yet." The recruits marched to the firing range, where rows of targets waited at various distances. The closest target stood at 100 yards, while the furthest stretched to 800 yards. Most recruits would be lucky to hit anything beyond 300 yards on their first try. "Mitchell," Sergeant Williams called out, "you're up first." Sarah stepped forward, and the snickering began immediately. Someone made a comment about her needing a step stool to see over the rifle. Another recruit wondered aloud if the recoil would knock her over. She approached the firing line, picked up the standard-issue M4 rifle, and examined it carefully. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, though it was different from the hunting rifles she had grown up with. She checked the sight alignment, tested the trigger pull, and settled into position. "Target at 300 yards, Sergeant Williams announced. "You have 10 rounds, make them count." Sarah controlled her breathing just as her grandfather had taught her years ago. "The rifle is just a tool," he used to say. "Your mind and your patience are the real weapons." She found her natural point of aim, relaxed her muscles, and squeezed the trigger slowly and steadily. The first shot rang out, followed by 9 more in quick succession. Each shot was deliberate and controlled. When the ceasefire was called, a soldier ran out to check her target through binoculars. 10 hits, he called back, all in the black. The laughter stopped. Hitting the target 10 times at 300 yards was impressive for any recruit, let alone someone on their first day of marksmanship training. But Sarah wasn't finished. "Sergeant," she said quietly, "may I try the 500-yard target?" Williams raised an eyebrow. Most recruits couldn't hit anything reliably at that distance without weeks of training. "Go ahead, Mitchell, but don't waste my ammunition." Sarah adjusted her position, factoring in wind speed and direction. The morning breeze was light but consistent, coming from the left at about 5 miles per hour. She made the necessary corrections and fired another 10-round group. "All hits," came the call from downrange. "Tight grouping." Now the other recruits were paying attention. Jessica Rodriguez had stopped smirking. Marcus Thompson was studying Sarah with newfound respect. Even Sergeant Williams looked surprised. "How about 800 yards?" Sarah asked. "That's expert-level shooting, Mitchell. Most of our best snipers train for months before attempting that distance consistently." "I understand, Sergeant, just 1 shot." Williams nodded slowly. The entire group gathered behind the firing line to watch. At 800 yards, the target looked like a postage stamp. Wind conditions became critical at that distance, and even tiny errors in form or calculation would result in complete misses. Sarah lay prone, settling into the most stable position possible. She studied the grass and leaves for wind indicators, noting how the breeze had shifted slightly since her last shots. The target seemed impossibly small through the scope, but she had made similar shots hundreds of times in the mountains of Montana. She controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, and applied steady pressure to the trigger. The rifle fired, and everyone waited as the soldier downrange checked the target. Direct hit, center mass. The training ground fell silent. Recruits who had been mocking Sarah an hour earlier now stared at her with amazement and respect. Sergeant Williams walked over to examine the rifle, checking to make sure it hadn't been specially modified or zeroed for long-distance shooting. It was completely standard. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, Mitchell?" "My grandfather taught me, Sergeant. We hunted together in Montana since I was 8 years old." "What kind of hunting requires 800-yard shots?" "Elk in open country, Sergeant. Sometimes you only get one chance, and if you miss, your family doesn't eat meat all winter." Williams nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. This wasn't just natural talent or beginner's luck. This was years of real-world experience under pressure, where missing meant going hungry. "All right, everyone," he called to the group. "Let's see what the rest of you can do." For the remainder of the day, Sarah continued to outperform every other recruit. Her shots were consistent, accurate, and delivered under pressure. She helped other recruits improve their technique, sharing tips about breathing control and trigger discipline that she had learned in the wilderness. By evening, the atmosphere had completely changed. Recruits who had mocked her that morning were now asking for advice. Marcus Thompson apologized for his earlier comments and asked if she would help him improve his shooting stance. "You're not what any of us expected," Jessica Rodriguez admitted as they cleaned their rifles. "I'm sorry for giving you such a hard time." Sarah accepted the apology gracefully. She had proven herself where it mattered most, but she knew this was only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she would need to prove herself all over again in different ways. As she lay in her bunk that night, Sarah thought about her grandfather's words. "Respect is earned one shot at a time." Today had been a good start, but the real test was just beginning. 3 weeks after the shooting range incident, Sarah had proven herself in every aspect of basic training except one area where she consistently struggled. Physical fitness tests remained her biggest challenge. While she excelled at endurance running and could march for miles without complaint, the upper body strength requirements posed real problems for someone of her size. "Mitchell, you're up," called Staff Sergeant Rodriguez during morning PT. The pull-up bar loomed above her like a steel monument to everything she couldn't quite achieve. The minimum requirement was 8 pull-ups, and Sarah could barely manage 5 on her best day. She jumped up, gripped the bar, and began pulling. Her muscles strained as she managed 1, 2, 3 pull-ups. By the 4th, her arms were shaking. The 5th pull-up came with tremendous effort, but the 6th seemed impossible. "Come on, Montana girl," encouraged Marcus Thompson, who had become one of her strongest supporters after seeing her marksmanship skills. "You've got this." But Sarah's grip failed, and she dropped from the bar after 5 repetitions. Again. 2-minute rest, then try again, Sergeant Rodriguez announced. "Everyone gets 3 attempts." During her rest period, Sarah noticed a group of officers observing the training from a distance. Among them stood a tall woman in dress uniform with colonel's insignia and several ribbons Sarah didn't recognize. The colonel watched intently as each recruit attempted the pull-up test. Sarah's second attempt yielded the same result. 5 pull-ups before her strength gave out. Frustration built in her chest, not because of the physical limitation, but because she knew this weakness could prevent her from advancing to specialized training programs. "Last chance, Mitchell," Sergeant Rodriguez said, though his tone had become encouraging rather than demanding. Everyone knew Sarah gave maximum effort in everything she attempted. As Sarah approached the bar for her final attempt, she noticed the colonel had moved closer to the training area. Something about the woman's bearing and confidence reminded Sarah of her own grandmother, who had run a successful ranch despite being surrounded by men who initially doubted her capabilities. Sarah jumped up, gripped the bar, and began her final attempt. 1, 2, 3 pull-ups came steadily. The 4th required more effort, and the 5th pushed her to her limit. As she attempted the 6th pull-up, her muscles screamed in protest. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, remembering every early morning she had spent hauling hay bales and fence posts on her grandfather's ranch. Her body might be small, but her will was stronger than steel. The 6th pull-up barely cleared the bar, but it counted. Sarah summoned everything she had left for the 7th pull-up, her form deteriorating but her chin clearing the bar by inches. 8 pull-ups seemed impossible, but she had come too far to quit now. With a final surge of determination, Sarah pulled her chin over the bar one more time. 8 pull-ups. She had met the minimum standard by the narrowest possible margin. As she dropped from the bar, breathing heavily and sweating profusely, unexpected applause broke out among her fellow recruits. Even those who had initially dismissed her were now cheering her success. "Outstanding effort, Mitchell," Sergeant Rodriguez said with genuine admiration. "That's what we call heart." After the PT session ended, Sarah was surprised when Sergeant Rodriguez approached her. "Mitchell, Colonel Stevens wants to speak with you. She's waiting in the briefing room." Sarah's mind raced as she made her way to the briefing room. Had she done something wrong? Was she in trouble for struggling with the physical requirements? Colonel Stevens stood studying a wall map when Sarah entered and came to attention. "At ease, Private Mitchell. Please have a seat." The colonel was an imposing figure, probably in her early 40s, with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes. Her uniform displayed an impressive array of ribbons and badges, including several Sarah had never seen before. "I've been watching your training progress," Colonel Stevens began. "Your marksmanship instructors tell me you consistently outperform recruits with years of hunting experience. Your scores at distance shooting are exceptional." "Thank you, Colonel. Your physical fitness scores concern me, though, not because they're inadequate, but because they don't reflect your actual capabilities. I watched you struggle with those pull-ups, but I also watched you refuse to quit. That tells me more about your character than any fitness score could." Sarah remained silent, unsure where the conversation was heading. "Tell me about your background, Mitchell. What drove you to join the military?" "My grandfather served in Vietnam, Colonel. He taught me that some things are worth fighting for and that freedom isn't free. I want to serve my country and protect people who can't protect themselves." Colonel Stevens nodded. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man. What did he teach you about shooting?" "Everything, ma'am. Patience, precision, respect for the weapon and the target. He said shooting wasn't about killing, but about responsibility. Every shot has consequences, so every shot must count." "Interesting philosophy. Have you ever considered specialized military roles beyond standard infantry?" Sarah hesitated. She had dreamed of becoming a military sniper since childhood, but felt foolish admitting such an ambitious goal when she could barely pass basic physical requirements. "I've thought about it, Colonel, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for specialized programs." Colonel Stevens smiled for the first time during their conversation. "Mitchell, qualification isn't just about meeting minimum standards. It's about having the right combination of skills, mindset, and determination. Your shooting ability is remarkable, but more importantly, you have the patience and judgment necessary for precision work." She stood and walked to a filing cabinet, retrieving a folder. "I'm going to make you an offer, but first I need to ask you something. Are you familiar with the term force multiplier?" "No, Colonel." A force multiplier is a capability that dramatically increases the effectiveness of a military unit beyond the simple addition of personnel. One sniper in the right position at the right time can accomplish what an entire platoon might not be able to achieve through conventional means. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Was the colonel suggesting what she thought she was suggesting? "Your physical limitations aren't insurmountable, Mitchell. They just mean you'll need to train differently and work harder than others. But your natural abilities and mental toughness are exactly what we look for in specialized reconnaissance and precision shooting roles." Colonel Stevens opened the folder and placed a document on the table. "This is an application for advanced individual training in surveillance and marksmanship. The program has a 90% failure rate, and it will be the most challenging thing you've ever attempted." Sarah stared at the document, hardly believing what she was seeing. "Colonel, I'm honored, but are you sure? I mean with my physical limitations." "Mitchell, I've been in the military for 22 years. I've seen big, strong soldiers quit when things got tough, and I've seen small, determined soldiers accomplish impossible missions. Size and strength matter less than heart and skill in the roles we're discussing." "What exactly would this training involve?" "Advanced marksmanship, fieldcraft, surveillance techniques, and specialized equipment training. You'd learn to operate independently behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence and providing precision fire support when necessary. It's dangerous work that requires absolute reliability under pressure." Sarah thought about her grandfather, who had never talked much about his combat experiences, but had always emphasized the importance of doing your duty when others were counting on you. I'd like to apply, Colonel. Good, but understand that accepting this opportunity means leaving basic training early and starting an entirely different program. You'll be separated from the friends you've made here, and you'll be starting over with a new group of trainees who won't know or care about your previous accomplishments. Sarah nodded. She had been starting over and proving herself to new people her entire life. One more thing, Mitchell. This program doesn't officially exist in any public records. If you accept, you'll be entering a world where very few people will ever know what you do or appreciate the sacrifices you make. Are you prepared for that kind of anonymity? Sarah thought about her grandfather's Purple Heart, hidden in a drawer for 50 years because he never wanted to talk about how he earned it. Some service was its own reward. Yes, Colonel, I'm ready. The specialized training facility looked nothing like the standard military base Sarah had left behind. Hidden deep in the mountains of North Carolina, the compound resembled a private hunting lodge more than a military installation. No signs marked its purpose, and the few buildings were designed to blend seamlessly into the forest landscape. Sarah arrived with 11 other candidates from various military branches. Unlike basic training, where recruits came from similar backgrounds, this group included seasoned soldiers with years of experience. Staff Sergeant Mike Harrison had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. Corporal Lisa Chen was a Marine Corps marksmanship instructor. Senior Airman David Walker had completed Air Force Survival School and spoke 4 languages fluently. Looking around at her new classmates, Sarah felt completely out of place. These were proven warriors with combat experience and advanced training. She was a farm girl from Montana who had barely completed basic training. "Welcome to Nowhere," announced their new instructor as the group assembled in a rustic briefing room. "I'm Master Sergeant Blake Thompson, and for the next 16 weeks I will be your instructor, your mentor, and occasionally your worst nightmare." Thompson was a compact man in his early 40s with graying hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. His uniform bore no unit patches or identifying marks, but his bearing suggested extensive combat experience. "This program has no official name and doesn't appear in any military records. You will never discuss it with family, friends, or other military personnel. What happens here stays here, whether you graduate or wash out." He walked slowly around the room, studying each candidate carefully. "Some of you have impressive military records. Others are here because someone saw potential that hasn't been fully developed yet. None of that matters now. Everyone starts equal, and everyone will be tested beyond their limits." Sarah felt his gaze linger on her longer than the others, as if he was evaluating whether she belonged in such company. "The washout rate for this program is 90%. Most failures occur in the first 4 weeks when candidates realize this isn't the adventure they expected. We don't teach you to be heroes. We teach you to be invisible, patient, and absolutely lethal when necessary." Thompson moved to a large map covering the eastern United States. "Your training will take place across multiple environments: mountains, swamps, urban areas, and desert terrain. You'll learn advanced marksmanship, but more importantly, you'll learn fieldcraft. Any soldier can hit a target on a controlled range. We need operators who can hit targets at unknown distances in adverse conditions while remaining completely undetected." The first week proved brutal for everyone, but especially challenging for Sarah. While her marksmanship skills remained superior to most candidates, she struggled with physical demands that seemed designed to favor larger, stronger soldiers. "Mitchell, you're moving too slowly," Thompson called during a night movement exercise. "In a real operation, your slow pace could compromise the entire mission." Sarah was carrying the same equipment load as everyone else, but her smaller frame made the 70-pound pack feel overwhelming during long movements through rough terrain. She refused to quit, but privately wondered if Colonel Stevens had made a mistake recommending her for this program. Her first breakthrough came during the stalking phase of training. Candidates were required to move undetected across open ground to reach firing positions within 200 yards of instructor positions. Most soldiers approached the problem with military tactics they had learned previously, using available cover and concealment to mask their movement. Sarah approached it like hunting. Growing up in Montana, she had spent countless hours moving through forests without disturbing wildlife. Her grandfather had taught her that successful hunting required becoming part of the environment rather than moving through it. Animals could detect the slightest unnatural movement or sound, making them excellent teachers for stealth techniques. While other candidates crawled quickly between obvious cover positions, Sarah moved with deliberate patience, studying wind patterns, natural sounds, and the positions of instructors before each movement. She used vegetation not just as visual concealment, but as sound dampening, timing her movements to coincide with natural noise like wind through trees. After 6 hours of movement, most candidates had been spotted and eliminated from the exercise. Sarah reached her firing position undetected, despite starting from the most difficult approach route. "Mitchell, how did you reach that position without being seen?" Thompson asked during the debrief. "I moved like I was hunting elk, Master Sergeant. Elk have better eyesight and hearing than humans, so if you can get close to them, you can get close to anything." Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting approach. What else did hunting teach you that might apply here?" "Patience, mostly. Sometimes you wait all day for one perfect shot, and you learn to read terrain and weather conditions because animals react to changes that humans might miss." "Show me what you mean." Sarah pointed to a distant hillside where instructors were positioned. "There's a spotter in that tree line about 800 meters out. You can't see him directly, but watch the birds. They're avoiding that area, which means something unusual is there. Also, the wind patterns show where someone might have good visibility versus where they'd have heat distortion problems." Thompson studied the area through binoculars, eventually spotting the hidden instructor exactly where Sarah had indicated. "Outstanding observation skills, Mitchell. That kind of environmental awareness is exactly what we're looking for." Sarah's confidence grew as training progressed into advanced marksmanship phases. While other candidates struggled with long-range shooting in variable conditions, she consistently delivered precision shots at distances exceeding 1,000 meters. "Mitchell, take the 1,200-meter target," Thompson called during a particularly challenging range session. Wind was gusting unpredictably, and heat distortion made target identification difficult. Sarah studied the conditions for several minutes, nodding wind indicators at multiple distances and estimating the complex ballistic solution required. The target was barely visible through her scope, but she had made similar shots while hunting in Montana's wide valleys. Her shot struck center mass, drawing nods of approval from instructors who had been testing her abilities. "How do you make those calculations so quickly?" asked Staff Sergeant Harrison, who had been struggling with long-range precision despite his combat experience. "Practice mostly, but also understanding that every shot is different. You can't just memorize ballistic tables and hope they work. You have to read the specific conditions for each shot and adjust accordingly." Sarah began helping other candidates with marksmanship fundamentals, sharing techniques she had developed through years of hunting experience. Her patient teaching style and genuine desire to help others succeed earned respect from classmates who had initially questioned her presence in the program. By the end of the 4th week, 7 candidates had washed out, leaving only 5 in the program. Sarah had not only survived the initial elimination phase, but had emerged as one of the strongest performers in critical skill areas. "Mitchell," Thompson called after a successful reconnaissance exercise, "I need to speak with you privately." Sarah wondered if she had made some mistake that would end her participation in the program. "Your performance has been exceptional in field craft and marksmanship," Thompson began, "but I'm concerned about your physical limitations in certain scenarios. Carrying a wounded teammate or rapidly repositioning heavy equipment could be problematic." "Yes, Master Sergeant, I understand the limitations. However, your other skills are so superior that we're going to modify your training slightly. Instead of focusing on roles that require significant physical strength, we're going to develop your capabilities as a precision specialist and reconnaissance expert." Thompson opened a file containing photographs and technical specifications for various specialized equipment. "These are the tools used by our most elite precision specialists. Lighter weight, more advanced technology, designed for operators who rely on skill rather than brute force. You'll be training with equipment that most soldiers never see." Sarah studied the photographs, recognizing advanced optics and specialized rifles that represented the cutting edge of military technology. "Master Sergeant, what exactly is this program preparing us for?" "Operations that officially don't exist, Mitchell. Missions where failure isn't an option and success can't be acknowledged. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility? Sarah thought about her grandfather's service, the medals hidden in drawers, and the stories he never told about protecting people who would never know his name. Yes, Master Sergeant, I'm ready to learn everything you can teach me. 8 weeks into the specialized program, only 3 candidates remained. The intensive training had eliminated everyone except Sarah, Staff Sergeant Harrison, and Corporal Chen. Each had developed different specialties, but all had proven capable of operating at levels far beyond standard military requirements. The final phase of training introduced real-world scenarios with live ammunition and actual consequences for failure. Master Sergeant Thompson had announced that their final evaluation would involve a joint mission where each candidate would need to demonstrate mastery of all skills learned during the program. Your target package includes detailed intelligence on a simulated terrorist training camp, Thompson explained as he handed each candidate a sealed envelope. This facility is located 30 miles from here in difficult terrain. Your mission is to infiltrate the area undetected, gather photographic intelligence, and if necessary, eliminate high-value targets with precision fire. Sarah studied the aerial photographs and topographic maps contained in her packet. The target area was situated in a valley surrounded by dense forest, with multiple observation posts and roving patrols. Approaching undetected would require careful planning and exceptional fieldcraft skills. You have 48 hours to complete this mission, Thompson continued. You'll be tracked by instructors using advanced surveillance equipment, but they won't interfere unless you're in actual danger. Success means gathering the required intelligence without being detected. Failure means starting the entire program over again. Master Sergeant, asked Corporal Chen, are we working together or separately? Separately, this is an individual evaluation, though your target areas overlap. You may encounter each other during the mission, but coordination is not required or encouraged. Sarah spent the remainder of that day studying terrain maps and planning her approach route. The most direct path to the target area would take her through a series of ridgelines with excellent visibility but limited concealment. Alternative routes through valley floors offered better concealment, but increased the risk of encountering patrols. She decided on a compromise approach, using ridge lines for navigation, but staying just below the crest to avoid being silhouetted against the sky. Her hunting experience had taught her that movement along contour lines was often invisible to observers positioned either above or below. At dawn, Sarah began her infiltration carrying minimal equipment: water, emergency food, her specialized rifle, advanced optics, and a camera for intelligence gathering. Her total load weighed less than 40 pounds, significantly lighter than standard military equipment, but sufficient for a precision specialist operating independently. The first 12 hours of movement went smoothly. Sarah covered 15 miles through challenging terrain without encountering any instructor patrols. Her pace was steady rather than fast, prioritizing stealth over speed, as she had learned during hunting expeditions with her grandfather. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Sarah reached a position overlooking the target valley. Through her spotting scope, she could see the simulated terrorist camp spread across the valley floor. Multiple buildings, vehicle positions, and what appeared to be training areas were clearly visible. She spent 2 hours conducting detailed surveillance, photographing the facility from multiple angles and identifying specific targets designated in her mission packet. The intelligence gathering phase was proceeding perfectly, but Sarah noticed something troubling through her scope. A figure in military gear was moving awkwardly across an exposed hillside about 800 meters away. Even at that distance, Sarah could tell the person was injured or in distress. The figure would occasionally stop and appear to be favoring one leg. Sarah realized she was observing either Staff Sergeant Harrison or Corporal Chen in serious difficulty. The injured candidate was moving toward the target area, but would never reach a safe position before being spotted by the instructor patrols she could see converging on that sector. According to mission parameters, Sarah was supposed to operate independently and focus solely on her own objectives. Helping another candidate could compromise her mission and result in failure for both of them. But watching a fellow soldier struggle while she did nothing violated everything her grandfather had taught her about duty and loyalty. Sarah made her decision quickly. She adjusted her position to get a better view of the approaching instructor patrol, then used her rifle scope to identify the specific threat. 3 instructors were moving systematically through the area where the injured candidate would soon be trapped. Using her advanced marksmanship skills, Sarah began engaging the instructors with simulated ammunition that would register hits without causing injury. Her first shot struck the lead instructor center mass at nearly 900 meters, officially eliminating him from the exercise. The second and third instructors immediately took cover and began scanning for the shooter's position. Sarah had already moved to a new firing position, using the terrain mastery she had developed during weeks of stalking training. Her second shot eliminated another instructor, and the third withdrew from the area to call for backup. This gave the injured candidate time to reach concealment and continue toward the objective area. Sarah completed her intelligence-gathering mission and began her exfiltration route, but she was now operating under much more difficult conditions. Her intervention had alerted all instructors to the presence of a highly skilled sniper in the area, making her own escape significantly more challenging. For the next 18 hours, Sarah used every stealth and evasion technique she had learned to avoid detection while covering 30 miles of rough terrain. She moved primarily at night, rested during daylight hours under carefully chosen concealment, and reached the extraction point with 2 hours to spare. When the exercise concluded, all 3 candidates had successfully completed their primary missions. However, Master Sergeant Thompson called Sarah aside for a private debriefing. "Mitchell, your intelligence gathering was flawless, and your photography exceeded requirements," he began. "However, you deviated from mission parameters by engaging instructor targets that weren't designated in your package." "Yes, Master Sergeant. I observed another candidate in distress and made the decision to provide assistance." "Why did you compromise your own mission to help someone who was competing against you for the same program slot?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "Master Sergeant, my grandfather taught me that some things matter more than individual success. Watching a fellow soldier struggle without offering help isn't the kind of person I want to be." Thompson nodded slowly. "Your marksmanship during that engagement was exceptional. 3 targets eliminated at extended range under pressure while maintaining complete concealment. That level of precision shooting demonstrates skills beyond what we typically see in this program." "Thank you, Master Sergeant. However, your decision to deviate from mission parameters shows either poor judgment or a different set of priorities than we usually expect from precision specialists." Sarah remained silent, accepting whatever consequences would result from her choice. "Fortunately," Thompson continued, "the type of operations you'll be conducting require soldiers who can think independently and make ethical decisions under pressure. Your willingness to risk your own success to help a teammate tells me more about your character than any training exercise could." He opened a folder containing official-looking documents. "Congratulations, Mitchell. You've not only completed the program but demonstrated the judgment and skills necessary for our most sensitive missions." Sarah felt relief flood through her, followed immediately by curiosity about what would come next. "Master Sergeant, what happens now?" "Now you become part of something that officially doesn't exist. You'll receive additional specialized training, then begin operations that will take you places most soldiers never see. Are you ready for that level of responsibility?" Sarah thought about her grandfather's hidden medals and the stories he never told about protecting people who would never know his name. "Yes, Master Sergeant, I'm ready." "Good, report to Colonel Stevens tomorrow morning. She has your first assignment waiting." As Sarah walked back to her quarters, she realized her real military career was just beginning. The training had been preparation for something much larger and more important than she had imagined. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it with the skills and values her grandfather had taught her in the mountains of Montana. 6 months after completing specialized training, Sarah found herself in a remote valley in Afghanistan, lying motionless behind a customized rifle that cost more than most people's cars. Her mission parameters were simple: protect a joint intelligence team conducting sensitive operations in Taliban-controlled territory. Her reality was far more complex. For 3 days, she had maintained overwatch from a concealed position 1,200 meters from the target compound. The intelligence team was gathering information about a weapons smuggling network that supplied improvised explosive devices to insurgent groups throughout the region. Their work could save hundreds of coalition lives, but they were operating deep in hostile territory with minimal backup. Through her advanced optics, Sarah could see everything happening in the valley below. The intelligence team, led by Captain Rodriguez and consisting of 4 specialists, had established their temporary base in an abandoned village. They appeared to be making good progress, photographing weapons caches and documenting supply routes. But Sarah had also observed troubling developments over the past 2 days. Taliban fighters were gathering in increasing numbers around the valley's perimeter. What had started as occasional patrols was becoming a systematic effort to surround the target area. Her encrypted radio crackled with incoming communication. Viper 7, this is Control, status report. Sarah keyed her radio quietly. Control, this is Viper 7. Intelligence team continues operations. However, I count approximately 30 enemy fighters positioned around the valley. Situation developing. Copy Viper 7. Intelligence team scheduled for extraction in 18 hours. Maintain overwatch and report any changes. Roger, Control, Viper 7 out. Sarah continued her careful observation, documenting enemy positions and movement patterns. The Taliban fighters were being careful to stay outside the range of conventional weapons, but they were clearly coordinating their positions to cut off escape routes. As afternoon temperatures climbed above 110 degrees, heat distortion made long-range observation challenging even with her advanced optics. Sarah had learned to work around these conditions during training, timing her critical observations for periods when atmospheric conditions were most favorable. At 14:30 hours, Sarah noticed new movement on the far side of the valley. A group of approximately 15 fighters was moving into positions that would complete the encirclement of the intelligence team. More concerning, several fighters appeared to be carrying heavy weapons, including what looked like rocket-propelled grenades. Sarah immediately contacted her control element. Control, this is Viper 7. Enemy strength increasing to approximately 45 fighters. Heavy weapons observed. Recommend immediate extraction for intelligence team. Viper 7, stand by for updated instructions. While waiting for direction from her command element, Sarah continued monitoring the developing situation. The intelligence team appeared unaware of their deteriorating tactical situation, continuing their documentation work while Taliban forces maneuvered into attack positions. Viper 7, this is Control. Intelligence operation must continue for 12 more hours to complete mission objectives. Your orders are to provide precision fire support if intelligence team comes under direct attack. Sarah studied the tactical situation through her scope. 45 enemy fighters positioned around a valley against 4 intelligence specialists. If the Taliban attacked in coordinated fashion, the intelligence team would be quickly overwhelmed regardless of her support. Control, request permission to engage enemy forces preemptively. Current positions allow for significant degradation of enemy capability before any attack begins. Negative, Viper 7. Do not engage unless intelligence team is under direct fire. Political considerations require minimal escalation. Sarah understood the political constraints but disagreed with the tactical logic. Her grandfather had taught her that the best way to win a fight was to avoid it entirely. But if fighting became unavoidable, you struck first with overwhelming force. As evening approached, Taliban forces began moving closer to the village. Sarah could see muzzle flashes from weapons being tested and final preparations for what appeared to be a dawn attack. The intelligence team finally seemed to recognize their danger and had begun preparing defensive positions around their building. At 200 hours, Sarah observed the beginning of coordinated movement by Taliban forces. Groups of fighters were advancing simultaneously from 3 directions, clearly implementing a planned assault. The attack would begin within minutes. Sarah contacted her control element immediately. Control, this is Viper 7. Intelligence team under imminent attack. Request permission to engage. Viper 7, you are cleared to engage enemy forces directly threatening intelligence team. Sarah had already identified her target priority list during the previous day's observations. Taliban leaders, heavy weapons operators, and fighters in positions to cut off escape routes would be eliminated first. Her first shot took down the Taliban commander at 1,180 meters, a difficult shot in darkness using thermal optics. The .338 Lapua Magnum round struck center mass, immediately disrupting enemy coordination. Sarah's second shot eliminated the RPG operator who posed the greatest threat to the building, where the intelligence team had taken shelter. Moving quickly to a predetermined alternate position, she engaged two more fighters who were attempting to establish firing positions with heavy machine guns. The Taliban assault immediately devolved into confusion, as their leadership and heavy weapons were systematically eliminated by an invisible enemy. Fighters began taking cover and scanning desperately for the sniper who was picking off their most important personnel. Over the next 30 minutes, Sarah methodically eliminated 17 enemy fighters, prioritizing those who posed the greatest threat to the intelligence team or who were attempting to coordinate the continuing attack. Her movement between firing positions was so rapid and quiet that Taliban forces never located her position despite numerous attempts. By dawn, the surviving Taliban fighters had withdrawn from the valley, carrying their wounded and abandoning their weapons. The intelligence team was safe and able to complete their mission objectives. Viper 7, this is Control. Outstanding performance. Intelligence team reports successful mission completion. Extraction helicopter inbound to your location. As Sarah prepared for extraction, she reflected on the night's events. 17 confirmed eliminations at extended range under combat conditions represented exceptional marksmanship. But more importantly, her actions had saved the lives of 4 fellow soldiers and preserved critical intelligence that would protect countless others. When the extraction helicopter arrived, Sarah was surprised to see Colonel Stevens aboard along with the normal crew. "Outstanding work, Sergeant Mitchell," Colonel Stevens said as they lifted off from the landing zone. "Your performance last night exceeded all expectations." "Thank you, Colonel. The intelligence team did the hard work. I just provided support." "Sergeant, that support involved precision shooting at distances and under conditions that most snipers couldn't handle on a controlled range. You eliminated multiple targets in darkness while under pressure and maintained perfect situational awareness throughout a complex tactical situation." Colonel Stevens opened a folder containing after-action reports and mission analysis. "Your actions last night saved 4 lives and preserved intelligence that will disrupt weapons smuggling operations throughout this region. More importantly, you demonstrated the judgment and skill necessary for our most challenging assignments." "What kind of assignments, Colonel?" "The kind where failure isn't an option and success can't be acknowledged. Operations that protect people who will never know your name or understand the sacrifices you've made on their behalf." Sarah nodded, understanding that her grandfather would have recognized the situation perfectly. "Sergeant Mitchell, based on your performance in training and combat operations, you're being recommended for assignment to our most elite precision unit. The work is dangerous, often solitary, and frequently thankless, but it's also the most important work our military does." "I'm honored, Colonel. What does this assignment involve?" "Operations that officially don't exist in locations that aren't on any public maps. You'll be protecting people and preventing threats that most Americans will never know existed." Sarah thought about her grandfather's hidden medals and the stories he never told about protecting others. "Colonel, I'm ready for whatever comes next." "I know you are, Sergeant. That's why you're receiving a new designation and specialized equipment that matches your unique capabilities." Colonel Stevens handed Sarah a small patch bearing a distinctive symbol, a coiled snake in black against a dark green background. "Welcome to the Black Vipers, Sergeant Mitchell. Your real work starts now." 2 years later, Sarah stood on a rooftop in an unnamed city, watching a terrorist leader through the scope of a rifle that didn't officially exist. She wore the black uniform of the Black Vipers, an elite unit so classified that even most military personnel had never heard of it. The small patch on her shoulder showed a coiled snake against a dark background, the mark that had made the colonel whisper those fateful words during her early training. Operation Ghost Wind had brought her to this moment, a single shot that would prevent a coordinated terrorist attack planned for major cities across 3 continents. Intelligence gathered over 18 months had identified Rahman al-Basir as the mastermind behind a network planning simultaneous bombings that would kill thousands of innocent people. Through her scope, Sarah could see al-Basir moving through his compound 1,400 meters away. The shot would be challenging due to variable wind conditions and the need for absolute precision. Missing wasn't an option. Al-Basir's security team would immediately move him to a backup location that intelligence agencies had been unable to identify. Viper 1, this is Control, came the encrypted radio transmission. Target confirmed in position. You are cleared to engage. Copy Control, Viper 1 engaging. Sarah controlled her breathing, factoring in wind speed and direction based on observations she had been making for the past 6 hours. Her specialized rifle, a custom-built system incorporating technology from multiple defense contractors, was calibrated for this specific shot under these exact conditions. The crosshairs settled on the target as Sarah found her natural respiratory pause. Years of training and combat experience condensed into a single moment of perfect focus. She applied steady pressure to the trigger, and the rifle fired with a muffled report that was barely audible beyond 50 meters. The target dropped immediately. Through her scope, Sarah confirmed the successful engagement, then began her rapid withdrawal from the area. Within minutes, she had disassembled her rifle, changed into civilian clothes, and disappeared into the crowded streets below. Control, this is Viper 1. Target eliminated, exfiltrating to primary extraction point. Copy Viper 1. Outstanding work. Extract to Safe House Charlie for debrief. As Sarah made her way through the city streets, she reflected on how far she had come from that first day when recruits had laughed at her appearance. The Black Vipers had become her real family, a small group of specialists who operated in the shadows to prevent threats most people never knew existed. Safe House Charlie turned out to be a nondescript apartment building where Colonel Stevens was waiting with a complete mission debrief and Sarah's next assignment. Exceptional work, Sergeant Major Mitchell, Colonel Stevens said, using Sarah's new rank that had come with increased responsibilities within the Black Vipers. Intelligence reports indicate that eliminating Al-Basir has disrupted the entire terrorist network. 3 major attacks have been prevented. Thank you, Colonel. Any word on the other network members? Local authorities are conducting raids based on intelligence Al-Basir's death will generate. The entire cell structure should collapse within 72 hours. Colonel Stevens opened a secure laptop and displayed a world map marked with various classified operation zones. Your success rate over the past 2 years has been perfect. 27 high-value targets eliminated, multiple terrorist plots disrupted, and 0 civilian casualties. That level of precision and reliability is unprecedented. Sarah studied the map, nodding operation sites spanning 6 continents and including some of the most dangerous locations on Earth. Each marker represented a mission where failure would have cost innocent lives. Colonel, I notice the operation tempo is increasing. Are threats expanding? Unfortunately, yes. Global terrorism networks are becoming more sophisticated and better coordinated. The Black Vipers are often the only option for preventing attacks without triggering larger conflicts or political complications. Colonel Stevens closed the laptop and looked directly at Sarah. Sergeant Major, I have an unusual request. The Pentagon has asked me to brief a select group of senior officers about Black Viper capabilities without revealing specific operational details. I'd like you to participate in that briefing. Of course, Colonel. What would my role be? Just be yourself. Show them what a Black Viper looks like and answer questions about training and capabilities. Nothing classified, obviously. The following week, Sarah found herself in a Pentagon conference room facing a dozen senior military officers, including several generals she recognized from news reports. She wore her standard black uniform with the distinctive Black Viper patch clearly visible. Gentlemen, Colonel Stevens announced, this is Sergeant Major Sarah Mitchell, one of our most experienced Black Viper operatives. She'll be available to answer questions about training and general capabilities. General Morrison, a veteran of multiple combat deployments, studied Sarah with obvious skepticism. Colonel Stevens, with all due respect, this soldier appears quite young and small for elite special operations work. What qualifications does she possess? Sarah remained at attention, accustomed to such questions after years of proving herself to doubters. General, Colonel Stevens replied, Sergeant Major Mitchell has completed specialized training that less than 10% of candidates survive. Her operational success rate is perfect, and her marksmanship capabilities exceed anything we've previously documented. Marksmanship is only one component of special operations effectiveness, General Morrison continued. What about physical requirements, leadership under pressure, and ability to operate in hostile environments? Sir, Sarah spoke for the first time, if I may address your questions directly. General Morrison nodded, clearly curious about what the young soldier would say. General, my grandfather taught me that size and strength matter less than skill and determination. Over the past 2 years, I've conducted operations in some of the most hostile environments on Earth, often operating alone for extended periods. My success rate speaks for itself. What kind of operations, Sergeant Major? Sarah glanced at Colonel Stevens, who nodded permission to continue. Precision elimination of high-value targets, sir. Long-range reconnaissance in denied territory. Counterterrorism operations that require absolute stealth and reliability. And your marksmanship capabilities. I'm qualified to engage targets at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters under adverse conditions, sir. Combat proven at ranges up to 1,400 meters with perfect reliability. General Morrison exchanged glances with other officers around the table. Such capabilities represented the absolute pinnacle of military marksmanship. Sergeant Major, another general interjected, what advice would you give to conventional military units about identifying soldiers with potential for specialized operations? Sarah considered the question carefully. Sir, look for soldiers who demonstrate patience, attention to detail, and the ability to operate independently. Physical size and strength are less important than mental toughness and the willingness to accept responsibility for life and death decisions. What about the psychological pressures of your type of work? Sir, my grandfather served in Vietnam and taught me that some sacrifices are necessary to protect people who can't protect themselves. When you understand that your actions prevent innocent people from being killed, the psychological pressures become manageable. General Morrison leaned forward, his skepticism clearly diminishing. Sergeant Major, off the record, how many operations have you completed? Sir, I can't discuss specific numbers, but I can tell you that every mission has been successful, and that hundreds of innocent lives have been saved as a result of Black Viper operations. The briefing continued for another hour, with officers asking detailed questions about training methods, equipment capabilities, and operational procedures. Sarah answered everything she was authorized to discuss, maintaining perfect military bearing while demonstrating the intelligence and competence that had made her one of the military's most effective specialists. As the briefing concluded, General Morrison approached Sarah privately. Sergeant Major, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on your appearance that were completely wrong. No apology necessary, sir. I've been dealing with such assumptions my entire military career. Your capabilities and accomplishments are extraordinary. The work you're doing is critically important, even if most people will never know about it. Thank you, sir. That's exactly how my grandfather would have wanted it. As Sarah left the Pentagon that afternoon, she thought about the journey that had brought her from a laughing stock in basic training to briefing generals about the military's most classified operations. The Black Viper patch on her uniform represented years of hard work, countless hours of training, and operational successes that would remain forever secret. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Colonel Stevens. New mission assignment waiting. High priority. Report to briefing room tomorrow 800. Sarah smiled, knowing that somewhere in the world, people who would never know her name were safer because of the work she did in the shadows. Her grandfather would have been proud to know that his lessons about patience, precision, and protecting others had found their perfect application in the elite world of the Black Vipers. The girl they had laughed at in training had become one of the military's most deadly and effective warriors. And tomorrow, she would once again disappear into the darkness to protect people who would never know she existed.